In a quiet town, suddenly there was an indescribable noise. The source is a fight between two guys. They each try to inflict on the other. Their duel could be fatal for some. The guy in the red sweatshirt decides to throw a powerful punch, first to the head. Immediately, the opponent was waiting for a kicking attack. The guy flew a few meters away. He started bleeding. Before the threat, the guy in white crouched in unbearable pain. Each other they know. One turned to the other named Seng Min, but he had no reaction, even though he asked him to stop. Holding out his hand, he asks to stop, but then some dark entity announces. She takes that very hand in her mouth. The guy starts squirming in indescribable fear and terrible pain. The guy in red, with the help of the monster, swings his arm around, so much so that the guy in white is distinguished to unimaginable heights. Now he had lost his arm and his shirt was torn to shreds. And then there was silence. He just did nothing and spoke. The tension was rising. Just then a magical glow enveloped him. The left arm, which had been gone for literally a second, recovered again. The entity inside the hero asks if he's still going to hold back, and the creature proves that in front of the heroes is no longer his friend. And to prove it, it asks them to look at him. Indeed, in front of him is already something not much like a human that can be called Gi. Going back in time a little earlier, we find ourselves on a basketball court. One of the players is a familiar character named Lee Seun Hwang. The girl standing with the guy asks why the hero is playing with a ball, even though he has school soon. He replies that he has time to finish playing and go to school, as the opponent reminds us with their offense that they're not done. Bypassing him, the guy suggests aiming for the ring. Jumping up, he starts aiming and successfully puts the ball right on target. The opponent is starting to get angry about losing to the hero again. As he's about to leave, he gives the ball to the girl. And now the ball has arrived at the girl. It's almost in her hands. Like that, the ball doesn't hit her hands. It hits her in the face. On the set, immediately, a roar of laughter went up. The girl's actually fine, except her nose is red. 3 comrades, walking to school, were discussing this situation. How's that? With Seung Hwang's address coming up. A classmate, with an offer to play a game after class, to which he replies that he doesn't play with low-ranked players. And at the same moment, everyone began to greet the hero and offer to go with them. The girl pointed out that although the hero had recently moved here, he already had a lot of popularity. People punctuate the dialogue in various ways, someone thanking someone for recommending the channel. Also, the guy says that Seng Min talked about him too. Rather, he remembers that the hero is his classmate. Hwang confirms all of this, except that Min doesn't like this kind of talk much. The guy says hello to him, but he ignores him, he leaves. And the hero doesn't understand why Min didn't answer. He wonders if something's happened, and the girl notices that the guy's expression isn't the best. And then a guy starts running in the way of the heroes, with not the most pleasant words. When Hwang sees him, he starts to panic, and just run off, saying the rest of us will be waiting there, and suggests a Big Mac, and it seemed like the day was off to a good start. But upon entering the classroom, Hwang froze in horror. Something disgusting was going on there. He had a horrifying picture in front of him. One of Min's classmates sat on him and made him ride him around on his own. The whole class laughed merrily at this. A classmate wasn't happy with the speed he was traveling, and threatened to smash Min's head in. But at the same moment, Hwang punches the disgusting guy. Right away, he asks if Seng Min is feeling okay. From such feats, a disgruntled classmate immediately called a hero, and he also started mocking him. In anger, Hwang asks why Park So-in is doing this. This freak immediately started to arise and ask what the hero was doing. He's almost being called crazy. Hwang reminds his classmate that he asked him not to touch his friend. The freak just kept asking who the hero thought he was. The other guy asks to leave for our hero's class. Turning around, he starts to walk back. In his wake, the freak calls him a loser. After all the classes to date, walking down Min Street, meets Hwang, who wonders when this started. The hero waited for the answer to his question. A shrunken Min says nothing in response. Hwang says to tell him if that asshole does it again, but Min asks that nothing be done to him. Hwang asks his friend without understanding. The one already shouting repeats for Hwang to do nothing. But he continues deep down. Min had a wound. He felt more insignificant, not when he was being bullied, but when he was with the hero. Toward the end, he asks me not to think about him anymore and to just go away. Min continued his journey home, the hero attempting to address him. But he didn't answer and he just kept walking. The hero begins to wonder why things are the way they are, and the essence reminds him that he can make sure they never touch him again. But to do that, he must awaken his mind. But there's a shadow of anger and sadness lingering behind Min, and the entity is also all interested in him because of his appetite. After everything, we are transported back in time to Hwan, who was 11 at the time. He was looking for his friends. He had to leave, so he can't keep playing. Coming around the corner, he yelled out that he'd found one of them. And now he drives, but rather realized it wasn't one of his friends. In front of him was a monster that was eating something. The realization made the hero's blood run cold in his veins. The monster turned around and turned his attention to Huang. The hero screamed and started to stagger backwards. Soon he fell down, and the creature, having left his food, began to approach Huang. Walked right up to me and opened his mouth. Closing his eyes, Huang shouted even harder. Opening his eyes, the hero saw one of his comrades in front of him, but he was shocked. A friend approached him, but there was no reaction. He started saying there's danger over there. But there was no sign of the monster, no sign of the beast. Friend, they asked what was supposed to be there. But Huang said there's nothing. The boys decided to head off in the direction of the others while Doha searches for them. But the creature turns out to be real, and it was perfect, seen by a man. Already at the present time, the hero sat at a table in a cafe and pondered. And the monster wondered what was keeping him from dealing with Min's abusers. The hero, he said it was nothing. He was just reflecting on the past. The monster in an instant assumes that passing people can see him. But it turns out a passing couple was surprised that the hero was talking to himself, using its monstrous power, the monster, by punching his finger through a coffee cup, and argues that the hero needs to use his power. The hero realizes that the demon is pestering him to improve the relationship, and he says those guys are bad though. Then Huang's phone rang. Turns out Doha's girlfriend called. When you pick up the phone, on the other side of the wire, the girl was crying, and she wanted to communicate something about Sinu Minu. She's asking him to come to her quickly. On the way, he reflects that Dohu was once fearless, but now begged to come to her, terrified. As it turns out, Seng Min gets beaten up. Those guys from school? His eyes are slowly beginning to close. It's mind-blowing to help him, with the wounds on his body. But Minu's condition is not deterred, and one of them continues to beat him up. And one of them remarks that it's not necessary for Minu to apologize like that. The associates, noting that at this rate, he'll be dead soon. And then he asks if he needs to beat him up again later. And Doha hid, and sobbing because of what happened to Seng Min. And here he is, honorably asking her to run away from here. And at such a moment, Min is plunged into memories. How he searched for Seung Hwan when he was 11 years old, and notices a picture of him being scared to death of something. He runs up to him and wonders what happened to him. He replies that it's nothing, and Min says he's looking for Dohi. And then you hear her voice, asking where they are. She finds them. She notices the state Huang is in and tells him she was worried. And looking at Seng Min, thanked him for finding him, and expresses confidence that the boy can be relied upon. Saying that made him smile on his own, and then the memory is interrupted by a scream. It was Doha who wondered if Min was all right. He immediately says it's not safe for her to be here. But when Min came up, and she said that everything was different now, and it was all right. At the same minute, from all Huang hit one of the bastards. She says that Sehyun Hwan has come and everything will be okay now, and she admires how reliable he is. And in Min's soul, there was confusion about why things were like this. Why did Huang handle everything and not himself? And then, all along the line came an indescribably loud laugh. A certain voice says it can smell greed and envy. An entity from the shadows offers to grant Min's every wish. Seeing such a thing, Min cried out in fear, and immediately I found myself in some magical place. He was trying to figure out what it was and where he ended up. And hearing a rather loud laugh, he, turning around, saw the same creature, screaming again. Min steps away from the creature. When the guy asked who he was, a monster just showed up behind his back. At the same instant, dozens of different creatures emerged from the shadows, appearing as Mina monsters. And the creepy name is Gi. Shocked by this, the hero wonders why they showed up here. One of them points to a hole in that space. If you look into it, you can see Huang beating up Min's abusers. And it's him the guy feels indescribably jealous of. Emotions urged the creature to Min. He himself urged them on. When he heard all this information, he started denying it, repeating over and over again that he didn't do it. Guy offers a contract to Min, and in place of him, help. With her, he can get revenge on all his abusers, and live without problems, without people messing up his life. It's something Min refuses with all his might. But with Guy's help, he can be with the girl he likes, and at least see you. Even with this temptation, the guy tries to deny and give his disagreement. But then he hears a familiar voice addressing him. Looking up, he notices a girl who at first glance resembled a lover. But when he looks closely, he realizes her face isn't right, and it's not really her. Turning around, back the demon laughs at the top of his voice. All you'd have to do to sign a contract is shake hands with an existing one. And the hero, under all the pressure on him that had been breaks, and raises his hand to the monster's arm, and the signing of the contract happened. With maddening joy, the demon utters that the world is now his. Back at the same construction site, from reality, Huang actually dealt with all of Min's abusers, and their leader wants an oath that they won't go near his friend again. In anger at being commanded by someone, he waves his hand around. But just at the moment of the swing, light and energy starts to be released from somewhere. All this power caused a gigantic pogrom, which made me suffer a little bit like Puck. So did the Doha girl lying on the floor. Only Huang's was unchanged, and the next thing he sees is Seng Min standing there. But the scariest part was this. Next to the friend was some sort of creature that resembled a monster. Immediately he became so to protect Doha, but something terrible was happening to Seng Min. But then, in an instant, he was vaporized. The worry for Min only intensified in the hero's mind. The creature, on the other hand, clearly sensed Gui's energy, but the disgruntled Huang doesn't believe in such a thing. They haven't been in this town for the past few years, so why now? The spirit cannot answer such a spirit, but recommends caution. He expresses hope in his friend, for he believes him. Taken in Doha's arms, but notices that he was fine this morning. Behind everything that happened on the construction crane, there was a girl with a bat. The next day, Min didn't show up for school. Huang asks his classmates to let him know if he shows up. He tried calling too, but he wasn't picking up either. Just then, the girl with the bat showed up in front of the hero. At the same moment, Doha is walking through the school trying to remember what happened yesterday, since she only remembers waking up in the evening, and she can't contact Min. And then she walks into the room and calls out to Huang, as he notices a girl telling him something, and she knows who it is. It's a new girl from one of her classes. Finished with Huang walking by Doha's side, she gave her a very angry look, and just kept on walking. Meanwhile, in another part of the same school, a regular guy walks by beautiful girls. He tried to hide his face from them, afraid they would recognize him, and then he would be exposed. Turns out he was waiting for everyone to leave class so he could walk in unnoticed. Finding his secret lover's desk, he places the sweet gift on her. He's madly in love with this girl, but he has to leave before everyone else does, so as not to be seen. On his way out, he noticed a scary picture. His lover was talking to a guy he didn't know. He's in a frenzy of sadness from the way she could have, but sadness passes, and anger and rage set in. Meanwhile, Huang and Dohee sit down to talk. The girl wonders if she and Shibei are close, to which he replies that he didn't, and they just played baseball, and that's it. But Doha didn't understand why she was looking at me like that. They also shared their worries about Seng Min not responding to them. Dohee's worried something's happened to him. Trying to reassure her, Huang smiles and says it can't be like that. The girl assumes he must have stayed home after yesterday, but when she directly asked if everything was okay, the character changed the subject. But this kind of thing didn't really appeal to Doha. She wants to go to Min's house together after school. Huang says he has an appointment and will get off and call her. He also tells her not to go there alone, and when she asked why she'd rather not go, he took her by the shoulder. He says they go together, just together. The girl, after all this, agreed. Meanwhile, on the soccer field, while everyone was playing soccer, the hero walked around and pondered about what Shiyun's girlfriend told him. She wanted him to come alone to the roof after class, and told him to take Gui with him. He was tormented by doubts. He assumed it was a trap, but the creature expresses its opinion that it would have been easier to attack quietly than like this. Huang wondered if he could sense Gui, but there's a problem here. He can't sense anything even if he gets as close as possible. He won't pick it up. It's probably a lurking goo. Or in the most serious development, the guy is stronger than he is. With a smirk, the hero says he's pathetic, to which he starts to get angry, and says that if he could get all his past powers back, things would be different. Constantly in the character's mind are the memories of what happened. And every time I get a headache, quite by accident, a soccer ball flies towards the hero. But it's his hands that stop him. But the ball really isn't going to go back to the owners. Everyone is in shock because of what happened. Just in front of his head, the ball burst, in a second, like flying into him. A lot of people don't believe that. In the men's room, there was a guy sitting there cursing Huang. He looked at the picture and was convinced that the hero was a fraud, and such as he is, should get in touch with the goddess Shi Yan. In his opinion, only one question haunts him. What were they talking about? I wonder if they're gonna meet somewhere. It only makes him angry. He gets mad about it. While he's pondering all of this, Gui turns up behind him. There's a strange noise in the stall that sounds like a scream. In the meantime, after class, already up on the roof, the hero is looking for a girl, and there's a very creepy eye watching him. It turns out the guy in the toilet, he was able to find him, and now he had a bloody urge inside him to kill him. Several shadows are forming on the roof. The hero heard this and immediately turned around. A few copies of the guy in the restroom showed up, and then suddenly everyone, including the hero. Shi-yan is wrapped around a white creature, and she immediately says that she has a contract with Guy too. And she's the same as Huang. Huang tried to digest all the information he had received, but this was prevented by a heavy blow on the door, so hard that it flew out on the... There's a guy in the doorway saying something to himself. He assumed his beloved was seeing someone, but not happy about what she said about being a free spirit. But Shi-yan doesn't even remember who's in front of her. She inquires of the hero, but gets such and such an answer. The guy resents her ignoring him, and screams about how he'll never forgive her, and all his clones ran toward the hero's sides. The girl, though not planning such a thing, doesn't mind fighting. Addresses Gui by the name of Bokshil. He shouted with all his magical power in an instant. All the clones stopped as if there was a wall in front of them. The possessed man doesn't understand what went wrong, why they stopped. They are attacking after all, as the original wanted them to do. But from all attacks, Shay masterfully deflects like a fish out of water, and uses some kind of ability called transformation. The energy from her guy goes to her at bat, and now she had a magic sword in her hands. The hero's Gi praising her for such a level. But Huang himself didn't know anything about the transformation. The clones continue their attempts to do some damage, but Shi is using the ability of his magic sword and cuts virtually everyone just with this attack alone. And whoever's left she quickly destroys with a sword. And now the original, furious that it's not pretty Shay in front of him, is attacking, and with one swing of the girl's sword, he dies. Huang is surprised at the fact that he's dead, but Shi-yan calms him down and says he'll live. She's using Guy's power to not kill people at all. She says it's been quite a while since she's seen a man sign a contract with a guy. And when she saw the hero, she thought he'd be strong, but she was disappointed. He's completely useless. And also, Gui himself is wondering how he signed Huang, and he assumes he's the only one who remembers it. She inquires about the wish he wanted to fulfill. Such magical beings are beckoned by despair, so they only come through in desperate situations. Gui doesn't sign contracts with just anyone. Everyone has a desire to do so. In both adults and children, if one is in a desperate situation, desires are bound to appear, and that's when the greed will start to kick in. And when all in all it's just a spark turns into a giant fire. But if you sign a contract, your humanity will fade over time. It's called Guy's Rage. And this guy just happened to have it, and the hero realizes why he hasn't seen the other guys. And also wonders if she's getting the hero justice. To which Bokshil laughs, and suggests about the contract not reading it correctly. In exchange for everything, upon signing, it is mentioned that Gui must eat similar to himself, and the very point is to build strength and ascend to heaven. There are the so-called 7 great halls. Some Gui seek to gain the power and human desires to become king of the Gi, and the hero remembered that his guy had already told him about such a thing. And when Gui Xian heard this, he laughed very hard. He accepts that he was once famous, and equaled the 4 kings, but definitely not now. To which he sharply orders the slammer to shut, but he wouldn't listen. He said he heard about the time he lost to a blue dragon, and so he lost all his strength. He repeats it again to shut it down. In an imperceptible instant, he found himself in front of Bokshil's muzzle. He took him by the throat and ordered him to shut up. But he just doubts if the power to do such a thing. And here we are in one of the many homes in this town. The woman knocks on Seng Min's door, but he doesn't answer. She wonders if he's in pain and asks him to open the door. It opened up, just a little bit. And when Mama Mina saw her son in front of her, she went into shock. In front of her was already a creature more like a monster. She just manages to say his name one more time. And then the monster pulls her to him. And out of the door of the room comes a dark and ugly monster. It wasn't long after this happened. Huang and Do-hee went to visit Min's mom at the hospital to check on her. They're very worried about whether she's okay. But she didn't respond in any way or at all. We're transported to a rather large building. There's a funeral going on for a couple. They were Seun Hwan's parents. They died in a car accident. Everyone was talking about how big of a loss it was, with Mom and Seng Min as guests. The hero was left all alone when his parents abandoned him. The uncle who was supposed to take care of him just disappeared. He couldn't walk home, and just stayed home, spending almost all of his time in bed. He was helped exclusively by his friends, who even cleaned his apartment for him. They tried to get through to him, but they couldn't. He pretended to be asleep, and even though Do-hee tried her best, Min explained to her that the hero needed more time. Once awake, walking out of the room, he greeted Min's mom and his friend proper. Turns out she came to help him with his food, because he's not eating well at all. She tells him to sit down and get ready to eat, and laid out all the many meals she'd made. Min wonders if Huang is okay with this. He confirms, saying that there's a lot of it. They all sit down to eat, and taking the very first spoonful of soup. The hero didn't linger and cried, bitter tears. And Auntie gives him more food and orders him to eat more, with the argument that the more energized he is, the more he'll cry. And Huang, through tears, agrees with this and thanks her. To him, his aunt was a very important person in his life, and what happened to her is unimaginable. Suddenly staring into the void, as always, she suddenly raised her hand upward in space, and it felt like dark energy was coming out of her. Huang set her down, wishing her a good rest, which she really needed right now. But here's the problem that's been forming, though. There's a clot of energy left here, which would suggest that the goo worked here. But then Doha came back into the room, put the water on the nightstand. She tells me that her uncle will be here soon. But his business trip is not over yet. And he also promised to keep an eye on her aunt. The girl turns to the woman and promises to come again tomorrow, and also hoped that she would get better very soon. Already outside when evening came. Walking outside, Dohi speculates on why Min is missing. And now, for some reason, Auntie's been hurt. All her thoughts are interrupted by Huang, who wonders if she can get home on her own. She confirms. The hero says goodbye, says they'll see each other tomorrow, and then he starts running away with all his might. Doha somehow doesn't understand it at all. Already outside the very house where Auntie and Min lived, there were still police officers there, but Huang really wants to get in there and check out the place where it all happened. Guy remarks that he's never seen the hero so agitated before, and wonders if he needs his help getting in there. Huang wondered how, to which Gui doesn't reply, but simply orders him to close his eyes and relax in the best way possible. And as the hero slowly breathed, his body was overflowing with Gui's energy. The hero begins to hear all the conversations that were around but he needs to put all the energy inside his body, and it began to circulate energy through the body. But still, the hero has no doubt that something will come of it, except that when he looked at his hand, he noticed an interesting change. It's like he's become invisible. It turns out that disguise is one of Gui's abilities. The character remarks that he should have said it sooner, but the problem was that Huang had never yet been interested in. Finished with the conversation, the hero began the journey to the house. But he'd been warned that the cloak would probably fall off, so he'd have to be careful. As we approached the gate of the house, there were people standing there. The cops were looking at him for clues, and Huang is testing them to see if they really can't see him. And because of that, he'll be able to sneak in very easily. And here are police officers discussing videos on the internet in which ghosts have been captured. Hearing such a hero continue, he's already near the gate, and he starts opening them. And that's what people around here notice. They decide what happened inside. The hero is already at the door to Min's room. Walking into the room, he begins to consider her. He notices a broken picture frame. The hero realizes that the aunt's scars are like the marks left here, and yet he wonders if it was Gui. Then it looks like Seng Min was eaten. But Gui shares a suggestion that it's more likely that Min was attacked to take advantage of his guilt. If it was eaten, the aunt was dead. Looking at the photo, there was a noticeable request to help him. The hero needs to find him immediately. Already in another part of town, 2 high school students discuss the video, calling it the most watched haunting video ever recorded. On it, the girl wanted to exercise outside her house, and while I was shooting the video, I noticed that there was someone behind her. It was a monster of unknown origin. The camera did not record the attack itself, only the girls screaming. My friends were shocked at how realistic it looked. Huang, who was called by Shiyon, passed near them. And she knows about the video too, and she found the place where it happened. She's on the lookout for Trace, but there doesn't seem to be much left there. As soon as the hero heard that, he told her to wait for him and started running. But she must have found something else interesting. Stabbing the sword into this blob left by the creature. By releasing a tremendous amount of energy from yourself, she sensed he wasn't alone at all. There was another one added first, but it didn't stop there. There's 17 of them in all, and everyone went in different directions. But where did they all come from? How come? And what's the point of their movement? They're all heading to school. Such a large number of guys. This is crazy, this can't be happening. Her guy can no longer track their movements. Now I wonder if the hero has that ability. And then Bakshil suggests we ask whoever is here for help, and she went along with it. A rustling sound was heard, confirming that someone was here. It's probably a vengeful spirit. If you eat it, it'll get stronger. But you also have to watch the limits. A monster showed up on the roof. He was screaming that he'd done nothing wrong. He has to get even stronger, to be able to catch that bastard Pak Chayan and take revenge on him. Shiyan wonders what he's doing. The creature cries and realizes it has remembered that he can get stronger by eating another guy, and falls to the ground from the roof with all his might. Wu Shiyon manages to hold off the wave he created. He was quicker than the girl had anticipated. She made a jerk in his direction and wants to strike him, striking with all the force of his sword. Guy didn't receive more than one injury and was able to hit Xian with his tail at the same moment. She managed to stay uninjured, and the monster kept saying he needed to get even stronger, to destroy your abuser, and to do that, you have to eat it. While striking the girl, she still managed to block it, and she decides that since he has a hard outer shell, then she'll cut him until he's a mountain of pieces. And she launched a series of attacks on the monster. And this time, he's already feeling the damage. She did it, but it's not over yet. Continuing to strike and strike, unexpectedly blocked her sword, and he grabbed her by the throat, and he's about to taste it. And then, at the very last minute, she announces, a protagonist who, with indescribable determination, attacking the strong Gui, thereby saving Shiyon from death. She's surprised that he's using his powers now, to which he said he just hit him hard and didn't use magic. The girl passed Huang, and I started thinking about how much damage I'd done to him. And Huang hadn't even used his ability, and was able to penetrate such a solid body, and now it has to be done away with for good. And after using Shiyon's power, turns out this guy's not even from their school. You can tell from his uniform that he's a student at Heng High School. She is surprised by this, and asks the character if he knows anyone named Park Chayan, to which she gets a negative answer. And now we have to decide who he wanted revenge on so badly. Huang offers his help, but Shiyon asks, what's the point of that? And then she talks about his friend being eaten, to which the hero gets angry and denies it. Well, at least he hasn't been eaten yet. She walked over to him, took him by the shoulder, and share my hope that they'll get along. They say goodbye and agree to see each other tomorrow. In his mind, once again, he hopes to get along with the hero. But right now, it's the abilities at the moment that are of interest. There's a guy walking by at one point in town. Turns out it's Seng Min. He resent dark energy from his heart. In the evening, in the middle of the streets, someone asks for nothing to do. A soul in dark hands doesn't want to disappear. Guy says nothing happened if she followed the contract. Min asks the spirit to forgive him, and the main thing is not to touch his mom. He doesn't respond to that by saying he can't do anything like that. He keeps him in the room while his mom cries. With a snap of her fingers, Gui hides her mother's soul. Min asks in horror what he has done, where she has gone. The monster replies that it went to a safe place, but if he does everything right, and as Guy wants, she'll come back safe and sound. And drawing near to Minu, he says, in that case, then he'll be in his care like a real partner. On one of the buildings under construction, two guys are sitting around wondering if they can skip school tomorrow. Just then, one of them notices a person approaching them. Min appears in front of them. One of the guys asks who it is. They didn't realize who broke in here. Just then, the possessed Min orders them to tell everyone that darkness has come. One of them calmly walks away, but the other one is terrified because he noticed it. He didn't realize whether he could see the man or not. They open the door and let him come in. The two guys are told to wait outside, but Min goes in. Walking through the building, he meets another man and greets him. It turns out that the man in front of him is also possessed by Gui, and he's unhappy that Gui Ming took so long to find the body. But in return, he says he's found someone who's right for him. A skeptic emerges to the fact that this body is so wonderful, and then he says he can show it, even though Toy Min is still resisting it. Then he realized why he was still in a semi-conscious state. And then the possessed Min remembers, and wonders if the second one would gather the right crowd while he was gone. He exposes, and realized the truth that one can no longer be alone. And the first one wonders if everything that happened in the past is still valid. We're talking about an alliance that will exist until enough forces are assembled. He turns around and says he won't be in the way, and he's going to leave, and just walks out the door. One of the crowd didn't like the guest's behavior, and wondered who it was. And the man in charge calls his name, Dark Link. Upon hearing that name, everyone cowered in fear and shock. No one should come into conflict with him until some point, because that's how they will get losses. But there's one person who can afford it. One big guy is really looking forward to swinging his fists. Afternoon, in a familiar school. Doha was very unhappy with the main character. Seng Min was missing, and Auntie felt very sick. Huang tried to calm her down, but nothing came up. She's going to put up a missing persons notice today. And this time, the hero doesn't have to run away, but taking her by the shoulders and turning to her. He had promised her to save Seng Min, maybe not now, but he would definitely do it. He understands Doha's excitement, but he asks for faith in his strength. From this, the girl could not say anything for a long time, just looked at the hero, and she agrees, and she says no one can stop Huang. After thanking her, he promises to tell her everything very soon. But the girl gets the idea in her head that she's been tricked. I'm going to the bathroom to look in the mirror. Okay recalls everything the hero said, and yet she smiles. But then there's a noise coming from one of the booths. An extremely thin girl comes out of it. Do-hee wondered if the girl was feeling okay. She all but looked at her. Just walks by laughing. In the evening, in one of the apartments, a girl takes a picture of her all-skinny body and posts the resulting photo on social media. Coming out of the bathroom, a certain contact starts calling her phone, which she's not too happy about. She picks up the phone and asks what he wants. The interlocutor is not very happy with the way she talks to her brother. But she repeats the same question. A man wonders if his sister still suffers from bulimia. She grudgingly replies that it's none of his business. Her brother says she needs to work out or she'll lose muscle mass, but she doesn't want to be doped up like her brother. She'd rather die. The guy says he needs to find free time for his sister's workouts, what she's pissed off about saying, and just asks what he wants. And her brother wonders if there's a guy at her school named Cy Young. And the brother turns out to be one of the industrial farms. Shi-in and Huang walked by, except he thought they were going to Hen's school. He suggests that the direction they took was not the right one, and she replies that this is where they came for the trial, and orders him to materialize. The hero didn't think of such a thing, much less want to. She wants to test Huang's skills since they're still working together. He suggests we just talk about it, that's all. But she's taking a serious stab at it, but he manages to dodge every attempt at it. Shi-yeon is very unhappy at the thought of Huang only dodging around. One of her hit-and-run techniques, very different from attack speeds. And now he'll be able to dodge one of these. And with a monstrous tug, tears at the hero. He remarks that it's the same technique, but she's gotten a lot faster. But what saves the hero is that the sword's trajectory is pretty obvious. And after a series of attacks, so strong were they that smoke went up. She, on the other hand, wasn't happy that even so, he was able to dodge without using the ability, and the hero couldn't even say anything. And it just goes to show that the blows were very obvious. Hearing all this, she gathers her energy back into her sword again. The hero claims she's taking it too far. After more attempted attacks, the hero claims he almost died. He's not the only one who's tired, and decides during his rest he wants to see if he can pass the test. Putting his bat on the ground, she evaluates the hero's performance very mediocrely. When he heard, his teeth began to grit with anger and frustration. And then she asks if Huang knows how the definition of Gui's power works. Huang assumes that through a contractual relationship. And that's partly right. But it also matters how Guy uses his powers. First things first, it takes when you absorb Guy and how strong you are. That is, the owner, because of his energy, can only use 20% of the... And if that's the case, they will be given powers incompatible with humanity. And then the hero got to thinking. It's been a long time since he's been in fights and sports, but he could still defend himself. And then the question comes up, what happens to the rest of the interest? Here's an example of Shay using his bat to turn another 18% into a sword. Using what you like improves your utilization. But there is something strange. Xian's materialization abilities and the hero's pure physical strength are equal. And there's the question of who Huang is. He doesn't know how to answer Shi. In another part of the city, Seng Min is walking down the street and casually approaches a company of 3 people, and one of them spots Min, which surprised him. When his interlocutor heard this, he interjected, and turning around, he looks at Seng Min, and the guy starts to get worried, since he recognized these people too. That second guy was Park, who was curious whether Min survived or not. And then the guy remembers all the moments of abuse, how he got water poured on him in class, strangled in the locker room before gym class, and the final moments was the semblance of a horse. And now he has all his abusers in front of him, all together. Because of all the memories, he starts to become overwhelmed with anger. And the guy is just putting wood on the fire. Back to Huang and Shi-yeon. The hero notes that the physical strength has been like this the whole time. It's been 4 years since then. Shi-yeon started to worry and listened attentively. At first, Gui told him all sorts of nonsense. Huang didn't understand anything since he was still a child then. Already the hero had grown up, tried to reflect on what he had heard then. Guy was very unhappy with such stories. Xian pondered in her mind that if they had been together for 4 years, Huang wonders if it was possible for him to become so strong if he had been training. But for skills, you have to use your imagination first. The hero thought about imagination. Yi Shiyen speaks by example that Bokshil has the ability to imitate people's voices. But because of her limited imagination, she can't make it work. Huang thought about it and realized that Seng Min would be good at this. Meanwhile, at Seng Min's place, people came up to him though and started poking around. But Min solely looked at one of them, without fear like before. And then he wanted to hit him to prove something to himself. Pak expressed his wish that his comrade would leave him too, but then he was overwhelmed by the fear in his eyes. After hitting Minu, its arm was broken. The freak fell and squirmed in pain, while Min stood still calmly in place, taking a piece of wood. He started walking towards Min with the urge to kill him. Meanwhile, Shu's wondering what happened to Seng Min. Yi Huang explains that he's good at drawing, and he can memorize and play with shapes. He was even able to win a few drawing contests, so he certainly doesn't have a bad imagination. The beast just bites through the wood. Puck was astonished at this. One of the bastards with a broken arm yelling at Min, but settles down after a thumping leg kick from Min, and the other began to be choked by dark energy. And ruthlessly Sen glared at his abuser. The third decides to just run away, leaving his friends behind. But Min appears in front of him in a second, and also grabs his dark magic, and Mina starts throwing punch after punch. After hitting back in the past, Sen's offender felt things had changed. He starts crying and apologizing for everything he's done before, and offers to be used as a servant. Min in surprise, Pak actually tried to make a face filled with grief. At the same moment, Min's fist flies into that face. Now the kid understands how it felt when they beat him up. More and more Min is getting bloodthirsty, and Guy likes it. Now he can finally regain his strength. Meanwhile, a familiar jock under Vui's control. Bainham's school is here. Sister, insanely unhappy with the fact that her brother came to her school. He wonders if the girl has become more sensitive due to the lack of carbs. As here, while he waited for an answer, his attention is drawn. A passing Dohi who's still thinking about exactly how to kill Huang, and it's because of the flyers. The girl was handing them out yesterday, and the guy is just in shock at such unthinkable beauty. Suddenly, all the flyers Doha had were scattered to the wind, all because of a kid who was running to class and accidentally pushed a girl. Calm, breathing in the air to calm down. She started picking up any remaining leaves on the floor, and then the guy starts helping her, and he wonders if she's okay. The confused Doha didn't realize who was in front of her. Certainly not a student of their school. He says that no matter how busy that guy was, he did a very ugly thing. The sister, on the other hand, decided to stick to tactics as if she didn't know him. Doha thanks him for his help, and the guy replies that it's just business as usual for him. It was only after collecting everything that he lowered his eyes and looked at the ad. Dohi noticed the boy's hesitation and inquired what the guy's having second thoughts about whether that brat is related to this girl, and now he dislikes him even more. Dohi wonders if he's seen Seng Min before, but the guy pretended he couldn't remember where it was happening, and he offers to tell her after school. Doha is skeptical of such a proposal in his mind, but hopes it will be okay. She, with a smile on her face, agrees to this suggestion. Doha is gone, and the guy decides to stretch his back while Seungin gathers information. In one of the many offices, Huang is sitting there thinking about possible skills unique to him. His reflection was belied by a girl who, with the words, "I found it," slapped the desk very loudly. Dohi says she met a man who saw Seng Min. From such information, the hero immediately wonders where it was. And Dohi tells me that she made a deal with this guy to take her to the place where he saw him. The hero immediately an alarm flared up inside. He was sure that Guy was involved here. Huang asks the girl to call him when she's getting ready so they can go together, to which the girl is not very happy about it, since here is the hero constantly running off somewhere alone. She turns around. Huang tries to convince her that he's going with her this time, and asks her to call him. Walking away, the girl in her direction hears a shouted request to call him and smiles. Huang decides that Shiyon needs to be told about it. Meanwhile, she met a skinny girl on the rooftop. She wanted something from Shu Yon, and when asked what she wants, she says nothing in particular. And at that moment, energy appears on her body. Shay notices it and guesses what it means. Just then, a green Gui announces himself behind the girl's back. Immediately, Shay begins the process of activating her powers, but in the blink of an eye, the girl is behind her back and expresses a desire to just talk. Shay is just shocked at this kind of speed. Even she isn't that fast. The girl talks about meeting in an empty lot behind the building after lunch, and for another one to come. Shu immediately wondered why she had to do that. The girl explains once again that they are here to talk, not fight. But if there's such a great desire, things can change. Shi Yan is insanely unhappy with the pitch. Meanwhile, in one of the buildings, there's a man lying on the ground and there's screaming. A group of people lying on the floor beaten. Only one remains conscious. The remaining man apologizes, though he doesn't know who's in front of him. He asks for a beating. The man who put all these people down was Seng Min. He says he can stop, but with words to the effect that he doesn't want that. Starts throwing punch after punch at the guy's face. Guy says to stop, he confronts the common people. His physical abilities are far beyond those of normal humans. Looking at the hand that had the guy's blood on it, he agreed. Now beating people up is a boring thing for him. And at that same moment, Gui says it looks like they're both ready to go. To go hunting. A hunt for the 7 great evils. It was after lunch. As agreed, the 4 men met. The guy looked at Huang and sure doesn't really believe they even have a contract at all. The hero, on the other hand, notices that they don't look much like the students at their school. Shai started to activate her magic sword already. And he's already with him wondering what the purpose of their being called here is. The guy tells her not to worry, and she'll get even weaker because of it. And after an awkward silence on Huang Yishi's part, and the thought of a sister who wouldn't mind killing her brother for it, the guy says that Huang and Shi are now becoming members of the club. And when the perfectly logical question comes up, what kind of club? Shay is generally going to quit after this, but the jock says that's not all there is to it, and threatens that if they don't join their club. In the same second, he starts releasing energy. A huge cloud of dust rises up around him. Shay's gut dropped because of that onslaught of strong energy, and then his guy shows up, and he keeps talking. If they refuse, they'll kill them. And then Bokshil calls out a name, Dao Xin. But Gui Huang, he notes that it's not Dao Xin, but a certain Dokebi. The aura the guy gives off makes you empathize with Huang, since there's only 2 of them here. Although there's a girl behind the guy's back, also with an ability, and that makes the situations even worse for the hero. The guy says it's too much effort to spend. And they're not here to fight each other. It's always easier for him to carry on a conversation after showing his abilities. Huang asks to talk about his club first, and then he remembers, even though he thought he'd already told it. The club is designed to rely on Gui, to work for Gui, and if Huang Yishi has contracts, then they should already know very well that Gui appears according to the person's desire. But weak Gui can't fulfill the corresponding wishes, and then he is either killed or devoured by others. And that's how the guys fulfill their desires. And in return, they help others. Well, to put it as succinctly as possible, it's a great club, who does nothing but good deeds. The heroes have 2 days to decide on an answer. Then he'll come back and ask. As he's about to leave, he remembers something. He doesn't mind a fight if he gets the chance. But the sister isn't satisfied with her brother showing off his muscles again. So she makes him leave. But as he was leaving, Huang's wondering what the guy's name is. He turns around and says his name is Park Cheyenne. Huang and Shi are confused as they have heard the name before. Then with Gui, who just wanted to take revenge on Park Cheyenne. Now there's no need to look for him. But now there's a very difficult choice to make. Well, the heroes have 2 more days. And for them, they have to train terribly and become much stronger. Huang says she wanted to find Park and find out if Gui was going to school too. But the girl says she would never join such an organization in her life. So Huang decides to find out after they've defeated them. Shay is worried about the pressure, but still, she should try not to worry about it. Still, Huang says the right things. Meanwhile, Do-hee is already waiting for the stranger who saw Ming. She's worried because Huang hasn't shown up yet. Is he really busy until now? And then the guy comes in. They're greeted once more, and the guy wonders if Doha's ready to go yet. She says we have to wait a minute, because her friend wanted to go with them. But the guy says he doesn't have much time, and have her text a friend and start walking already. Doha turns back and thinks about what she should do, and decides not to wait for the hero anymore. On the other side of town, in the building, guy's sitting on the couch, doesn't know what's going on. The other guy is interested in the money, profit of approximately 25% per month, but he's still in debt from last time. But the other one claims he's got it all back, and there's nothing. But looking closer, the debt was indeed solidified. You have to write everything in a notebook, not in books. Technological advances have come. Still, the man remembered and all returned the favor. Now, you have to send the money to the right card. But the person doesn't remember the card number. Now he has to report it to the chapter. Now the guy is all over the street laughing. Now he's gonna get the money for nothing. At the same moment it takes Pak and Doha. He suggests it probably has something to do with the incident. Walking around, Do-hee wonders how far to walk, and it shows that it's going to be in this building. Turns out that the room where the sports equipment is kept. Do-hee wondered if this was the exact place he saw Min here. He walks to the door and closes it, and that's when the girl realizes what kind of trap she's walking into. Meanwhile, the hero doesn't understand why these lessons are going on so long. He's looking for her girlfriend. He doesn't understand where she might have gone. He's trying to call her. But Doha's cell phone doesn't have reception. He's worried about what might happen to her. Some guy comes up to the hero. It turns out to be the same guy named Jae-hee. Huang wonders if he's seeing Do-hee, and he remembers what he saw a short time ago, and he talks about it, that he saw her with a jock, some guy. So Huang decided to ask about the man Dohee was with. A guy gives advice about treating a girl better. Just then, Huang grabs Jie's hand and asks where he's seen her, and points out what's around the corner. And immediately the hero runs over there. Guy doesn't understand what's wrong with Huang. It's probably because of that incident, and Jie shouts to Huang to wait for him. And here in that building, Puck says Dohee is doing great. Just as the hall door is knocked off its hinges, and two guys go in there. Huang covenants Dohee. Jie doesn't understand what's going on there. Turns out Puck made me squat multiple times. The hero says he asked Dohee to wait until he got here, and she says she was really waiting. Park is surprised. I didn't expect to see Huang so soon. There are still 2 more days to go. Immediately, Huang replies that there's no point in waiting that long. Huang makes a dash with all his might towards Pak, with a great desire to beat him up, and yet you still get to punch him. The impact was so powerful, Puck went into the wall, and the hero says he's declining the offer of membership. Ja-I is surprised at how fierce Huang has become. The character says he wanted to live a normal school life. First it happened to Min, and now Doha. Why all this? Why touch them? If Puck wants a hero to join him. That Puck needs to get up, and now Huang's gonna destroy him. And if that's what the hero wants, Puck will do it. And in a second, Puck will activate his full power. And now Puck's gonna have to eat the hero, since that's the way it is. The guy suggests the hero make a deal between the two of them. If Park wins, Huang will join Park, and if he loses, Puck will fulfill the hero's every wish. Huang wonders if he can fulfill it. Puck is sure he's going to win, and thinks the hero is very cocky. And the deal was done, and now it all begins. And every one of them was ready for battle. Doha has been watching the conflict, and wonders what's going on. She sees Gui and Pak and Huang. She feels like she's seen something like this before. And in the moment she remembered that very day, when Min was being beaten up, and Huang came to the rescue. That's when Seng Min began to be surrounded by a kind of dark energy. She didn't understand what this incomprehensible energy was. That's when she notices Huang, who was fighting Pak. The guy wonders what happened to the hero's attitude, and Pak was already starting to step up and take the lead, and delivered a mighty blow to the hero. But the hero managed to dodge, and now he decides to counterattack. The hero was in a lot of trouble, due to Puck being very hardy. That kind of muscle was there for a reason, not just to get his attention. Guy gives the advice to try and avoid him, and overall the fight will be hard to win. The hero thinks he's not thinking about escaping. Puck begins to prepare for the next attack. Abruptly it formed under the hero's nose, even though he's putting up a block to defend himself. But the attack was so strong that Huang flies off, and that wasn't the end of it. He decides to keep the combination going. From the second attack, Huang is already falling to the ground at an insane speed. And the third and final attack, he jumps on him from a height. Dohee empathized for the hero, and screamed his name. There wasn't a single living spot on the hero by the feel of it. Coming out victorious, Pak suggests that Dohee continue the class. But here Jaish notes it is unlikely that it is over already. Pak doesn't understand such a thing. He's sure he's gotten rid of it. As he turns around, he notices Huang getting up from the ground, and he's starting to let the energy out, which he hasn't done before. Guy's power bursts out of him for the first time in ages. He turned into the full form of Guy's transformation. Having unleashed his power, what had happened caused Puck to misunderstand, and besides that, the form the hero took was surprising. Jaish was amazed at such an obsession. Park didn't understand how Huang could use the obsession skill so highly. Huang himself was surprised at being able to capitalize on the possession. The hero assumes he won't be able to use it for a long time. So we need to get this over with as soon as possible. Retribution to Puck will be swift. It will be such a reward for helping to find this mode. Puck says that the hero's arrogance is still that way, and he's already gone on the hero's offense. But Huang dodges each of the attacks, but gaining strength and anger. Attacks with the strongest of attacks, Huang was already unable to dodge it and put up a block. The blow resulted in a broken arm, but she would recover from his power in a second. The hero himself was shocked at such powers as these. Puck is definitely not happy about this development. Huang recognizes the high level of his opponent, but at this point it feels like he's definitely not going to lose. Puck recommends that you do it again after you fight him. That's exactly what Huang wants, to figure it out already. In the blink of an eye, Huang finds himself at Puck's side with the hardest of punches. Even though by putting up a block, Park reduced the damage. But his arm broke under Huang's pressure. Everything is going according to the hero's plan. Park claims that Huang is in terrible shape, but the hero sacrifices himself to be able to whack the villain. On impact, it turns out the hero's arm was ripped off. That's how powerful it was. And also in a second, she was in place. Fighting with a broken arm is harder for him than it used to be. Yaik reflected that usually people try not to get hurt. It turns out that Huang decided it was better to spend all of his energy on offense rather than offense on offense. He fights just like the real guy would, with the regeneration skill. Puck wonders where the hero learned to fight so stupidly. And it turns out he got it from the manhwa to the... Now it's the hero's turn to attack. In one spurt, he is beside him and strikes a mighty blow. But Puck, though he has learned his lesson, immediately attacks back. Thank God he anticipated such a blow, but it's immediately followed by another blow from Huang. Puck flies into one of the many walls, and the hero had already managed to heal the wound in his chest in a moment's time. Out of the smoke, a voice of non-acceptance is heard. Puck can't admit he lost to someone like the hero, started popping a bunch of pills that should help, and taking all the pills that have been... The pills are having a very strange effect on the guy. Turns out this medication is a steroid, which causes a guy to turn. His muscles are becoming indescribably larger than before. And now have the hero try to block a punch in this form. The hero will try to finally put an end to it, and the monsters flew at each other in a rage. Such a battle made an indescribable noise and clamor. Doha is worried about the protagonist. Ja-I calls them madmen in general, with monster powers. Huang's body begins to emit green energy again, and the form of possession ceased to function, and simply fell asleep. But it was for a reason. The hero managed to defeat Puck. Huang began to worry about Dohi, but as soon as he spotted her, relief coiled on his soul, and with joy in his eyes, he began to run to her. Just then, the hero's bug-eyed vision notices Puck starting to move, and he swooped down on the Doki with determination. The hero's worries immediately overwhelmed him. He began to fear madly for her, and to defend the Doka is decided by Ja-Ich, counted from 100 to 200. He pushes the villain away from the girl. Theirs was no such dishonor to not accept their defeat and attack stealthily. Immediately the character's questions come up, and here's Yim saying he never thought Huang was possessed. Huang asks Dohi to come to him, but Ja-I assures that everything will be fine and he can be trusted, and that at this moment, he's not their enemy at all. But the sentries should be coming through here soon. But Dohi and Huang are each healthy, and after hearing about the sentries, the hero assumes the guy knows Shi Yan, and now at least he can relax a little. And after a time, Shi Yan does indeed come to the site of the battle. She doesn't feel any energy, and decides to go inside to check everything out. But here she is, annoyed by the fact that Puck's sister is following her around. She says she's here for the sole purpose of watching the show. When the girls walked in, they were surprised at what they saw. And the first thing they saw was Puck passed out, who was insanely unhappy with the events that took place, and turning my head. And the rest of the guys who were waiting for them, the girl was shocked by the fact that the hero had defeated her brother, and immediately began releasing her magical energy. But here, the hero was not going to hold back as before, so he immediately offered a fight. Xian and Jia looked at each other, but immediately the girl declined such an offer. She just wants to leave with her brother and is asking for that opportunity. The hero agrees, but says that before they leave. There's a couple things that need to be worked out. He walked up to Pak. He remembers the guy telling the girl about knowing Seng Min, and now he's wondering where he is right now. Jia motivates Pak to respond by reminding him what was done to people who didn't keep their word. Pak wondered. Calling Seng Min's name, they meant Darkline. According to the guy, he teamed up with their club. Huang doesn't care who Min teamed up with. He cares about where he is now. Thoth replies that Min had recently joined the club and had a goal to recover his strength. But then he left to become stronger. And that's why he doesn't know where he is. And the memory of the tincture of the hunt for evil. Having received such an answer, the hero was not very satisfied. He was ready to hit Puck again, but he is stopped by Puck's sister, who claims that everything said is true, and that they really know all of this. Shay intervenes in the conversation, suggesting that the two have already been dealt with. Puck asked not to do that. He was insanely afraid of Shi's sword, and no wonder, having struck him with his magic sword. She turned him into a regular guy, no sign of muscle, and Shiyun suggests what his wish would be. And the girl will make sure to tell the club about it. The hero is officially in front of her, refusing her offer. Taking her brother, the sister remarked that now they would have it like they had before. Things have been much better in the past, and now everything will fall into place. They're just walking out of here together. Shi Yan, on the other hand, is not happy and turns to Huang, wondering if he wasn't supposed to be practicing, and why it happened in the first place. The hero does not understand how the girl found out where he is. And she found out because of the noise that was raised. Shay wondered and wanted an explanation. Jai cuts in on the dialogue and suggests that no one is in the mood to discuss it right now. Huang Wu's first concern was Doha's condition. To break things up and calm down, Jia suggests we go to coffee. In one of the many coffee shops in this town, Shi-yeon and Hwang were sitting at the table. Shay wonders where the girl who was with the hero disappeared to. Hwang initially didn't realize who she was talking about, but soon it came to him. He sent Doha home because she looked completely shaken up. The girl wonders what the burden is, and the hero replies that she is nothing. Doha said nothing because she was afraid of endangering Hwang, and I did what I could for it. Shay doesn't see what the point of bringing in an ordinary person. The tension is interrupted by Ja-ich appearing, coffee in hand. Hwang thanks him for the drinks, and he tells him that the hero can drink them all he wants. And then he brings up the fact that there must be other contractors in this place besides him. But he didn't think Hwang would be on that list either. He also notes that this fight between the hero and Shay is like a love quarrel. Hwang didn't fully understand what he heard. And here's a girl wondering who this guy is. Sipping your cold beverage, he states that at the very least he is not their enemy. But Shi-yeon doesn't have much faith in it. But Ja shrugs off all these suspicions. He says that this club, with which Puck was a pa, he doesn't like it either, and he wants to destroy it. After such a phrase, there was silence at the table. He was surprised that the hero and the girl had no questions, not even about Gwem's true nature. The hero was sure that Ja-i was no enemy at all. Upset, Ja-i agreed. Shi-yeon asks the guy to tell him about that club. Gia wonders what Park said, and the girl repeats that they are helping other weak guys. The guy laughed at the whole place. He apologizes for it, but claims it was too funny. Now Gia understands how they phrase it, but in reality, they don't just help for nothing, they help for a fee. Once a person is empowered, they have to give a certain amount of energy. Also, these people are dependent on their boss. Ja wondered if that sounded familiar. In the hero's mind, he thought of a pyramid scheme. And indeed, the scheme is very similar. One common deception. Because of this, the leader has tremendous power. Puck was one of them. The girl wonders how much of a leader, and it turns out, after Puck was defeated, there were 3 of us left. Oh, the leader of this trio, much stronger than Puck. The character was troubled by this information, and the girl only thought of such power in her mind. And that all this information sums it up in one way. The guy offers to make an alliance with him. The hero is already out in the fresh air. And he's trying to call Delzy. But he doesn't succeed, the girl doesn't answer. And then he had an idea where she might be. In the wilderness, in the circle of mountains, there was a quiet place. And the hero goes in that environment. And yet his hunch was correct. He notices Doha. He walks up to a girl who's very important to him. And she says something to him. She says she understands now. And out of the blue, the hero asks about the mountain Dokebi. The hero doesn't understand how the girl could know about it. And the girl interjects the hero's question. And she finds herself in possession of a guy who shows up beside her. Both the hero and his guy were in indescribable shock. A memory from the past came to mind. Hwang asks the offended Doha not to run away from him, but she always did. But it wasn't hard to find her. She always came to the same place. She sat there, thinking about life and injustice. Or maybe she was waiting for the heroes. The hero finds her and talks about how he and Min were looking for her. And in response, she talks about looking down. Feels like she could know anything. But the hero tried to talk to her and things got better. And not much has changed since that day. Hwang crouched down on the ground beside the girl. Dohee says she's been organizing her thoughts all by herself. But now she knows her aunt is injured and also missing Min. She handed out flyers without understanding anything. But now she realized that all this time the hero had been doing everything alone and was worried about her. And at the same time, she hates the fact that everyone knows and she doesn't. It's too much for her. Now she understood why Shi-yeon was looking at her like that. The girl was concerned for telling the guy. She enjoyed the slight breeze and tried to get her thoughts in order. And in an instant, he appeared. The hero made sure to touch it, with the thoughts that it was a nice guy. But he was even afraid of Hwang and hid behind the girl, which surprised the hero, guy so easily frightened. The girl continues and expresses the thought that she will not wait alone now, and she wants to find Seng Min along with the hero. Hwang happily agrees to such an offer. And in the clubhouse, the sister was telling the ringleader about her brother's failure. He couldn't believe the kid could beat Puck, so they underestimated him. The girl asks to be given another chance, as what happened was unexpected. She even asks for permission to kill Hwang. He refuses because it's too dangerous for her. To solve this situation, he himself needs to get involved. He sharply turned to a guy named Jin Woo. The guy turns out to be an acquaintance, and he handles the paperwork and finances. They ask him to tell them about the profits. He says they have a new client, how large schools have borrowed money in amounts ranging from $1 million. The increase is as much as 400%. But then, at the moment of reckoning, he notices that the money is missing. And the boss is very unhappy that even though they're lending money, they're spending it. The girl next to me is laughing. She says she asked for the bills to be given to her, and he remarks that if they were in her hands, they'd lose all their money to gambling. And then the girl explodes with joy that she's hit the jackpot. The man listened to what was going on around him. Supervisor inquired about the Hoyong school being in debt default, but soon asks him to forget about it. And he decides to deal with it since he's already walking around. And here it is in the afternoon, outside the school. The hero introduces the Doha group to all the participants. Ja-ai greets her loudly, but she stares at her silently. And then Huang wonders what the girl's powers are, in fact. Shay doesn't like that she doesn't even feel empowered by her, and congratulates her for not being a burden. And the hero wonders what she's talking about, as Do-hee agrees with her. Her gu is pretty weak, she admits that, and remarks that he's not as famous as Jangsun Tiger. Shu is shocked by what she heard. She's enraged, and wants to know how the girl found out about it. And Do-hee replies that when she signed the contract, she only wanted one thing: to make sure no one goes missing without a trace. Her detection ability helps her learn the location of other guy and their abilities. Ja-ai notes that such an ability is insanely rare, and Do-hee picks up on the fact that her guy is weak in combat, but can help with determination, and the others are already in battle. And then Huang abruptly wonders if she knows where Seng Min is. But the problem is that she doesn't know his ability, so she doesn't know which guy belongs to him. But the hero still asks her to try it now, as it's their last hope, and she agrees. Immersing herself in her thoughts and using her power, she opens her eyes abruptly and decides to go for it. The girl finds herself in a semblance of a familiar world, but its politics of color are quite different. She can move around in it at unimaginable speeds for the average person. Based on an analysis of 5 kilometers, about 3 targets were spotted. Each of them exuded a white color that spoke of their possible safety. All of a sudden, the school's orange-colored light came on. Around the library, a man speaking on the phone asked the other person to borrow a certain amount of money. He wants to bet on one of the athletes, according to his sources. He ate Korean food today. And usually when he does that, he's got the win in his hands. The interlocutor turns out to be a guy from the club who is not going to give money until the last minute. Since the amount the man was borrowing already exceeded the value of the collateral, he warns that the boss has decided to raise the money on his own, so he advises to have the money ready, and says not to let the man talk about not being warned later on. And if the person does not give the money, the supervisor will pursue him until the debtor's last breath. And the phone conversation has been completed, and now the man doesn't know what he should do. He asks a coworker for a loan of $100,000, but he refuses without a second thought. The man promises to multiply them several times over and return them to him. But the man doesn't believe in such a thing. And the one advises better invest like him and get great joy. But the man shares the hopeful that Bitcoin will collapse in value, but in the soul of the guy remains solely hope in the good future. Meanwhile, the heroes are already on their way to the library with all their legs. When you open the door to the right room, they see a wounded guy up against the wall, and the very man who was in dire need of money. He had lost a good deal of his human features, and his only words were about money. And the more time passed, the less he looked like a normal person. And when you get the bankruptcy notice, he's filled with anger and he smashes his phone. And in front of all the members of our team, he finishes his metamorphosis, finally turning into a monster. When Doha saw it, she went into a huge shock. But it wasn't just the appearance of the new creature that caused and then a new one of giant dark energy. Something was approaching at breakneck speed toward them. And it's actually almost here. Something actually flew into the library, raising smoke and causing the hero to back away. The monster was held by its mouth by a man from the club. He talked about asking the man to take his call. His focus was initially only on the debtor, but soon he spotted the heroes who were also in the same room. He was only glad of this arrangement, as now he wouldn't have to search for everyone. Ja-ai realized who was standing in front of him, and he didn't understand why exactly he was here. The hero felt a tremendous power that was nothing like what Puck exuded. The man asks not to be afraid of anyone. He just wanted to look at the man who had beaten Pack. He blames the heroes for his loss of an employee. The creature is attempting to inflict damage on the leader, but it was pointless. He still had one blow to shred it to pieces. Everyone went into shock from such indescribable power. Having finished with the debtor, who was now in the form of a man lying on the floor, he got a call from a guy at the club. The boss informs him that he has taken care of him and orders him to come and bring him in. By actually facing the hero, and talks about how he was going to kill him if he didn't like him. But here's a man very interested in Huang.